Hello and welcome to Student Affairs Live. I'm your host, Tony Doody, and I'm pleased to be joining you from my professional home at Rutgers University. We broadcast on a Higher Ed Live network, and you can tune in to Student Affairs Live on Wednesdays at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. In a moment, I'll introduce you to our guests, but we can't do that without first giving a shout out to the sponsors that make Student Affairs Live possible. Higher Ed Live is produced by M. Stoner, a digital-first agency committed to tailored solutions that drive real results. Are you a Higher Ed Live newsletter subscriber? By signing up for the Higher Ed Live newsletter, you'll get exclusive details about upcoming episodes, recent blog posts, and the most popular podcasts. This holiday season, one lucky subscriber will receive the gift of digital storytelling. I don't know what that is, but it sounds exciting. We're giving away access to M. Stoner's digital storytelling for higher education, where you'll learn the essential elements of on-brand digital storytelling to engage your most important audiences. Subscribe to the newsletter to enter your name in the drawing. We'll be tweeting out a link with more information shortly. This broadcast is sponsored by ACPA, College Student Educators International. Support for Student Affairs Live is one of the many ways ACPA provides innovative professional development. Visit myacpa.org to discover additional personal and professional development opportunities. I also want to take a moment to thank Kate Zullo and Robin Janice, who are helping to monitor the back channel and forwarding to me your best content and questions from the Twitterverse. And finally, I am very pleased to have joined us today a great cast of guests today: Beth Bagwell, Dilnavaz Cama, and Emily Allen. Thank you for being here, everyone. And I want to start off by having you each briefly describe your current role and why you became interested in this profession. Beth, you want to start us off?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Beth Bagwell. I wanted to begin by thanking M. Stoner and Higher Ed Live for the invitation. And also, I wanted to congratulate Tony, and this is your 44th episode. Congratulations.
That's right. Thank
you. As executive director of the ITGA, I've had the wonderful opportunity to work and visit with our member communities, attend meetings, and present on conferences and complete the daily affairs of the organization. I used to work at Clemson University after completing my MPA degree, and living near a college town was always a positive for me because of the increased quality of life that it offered. So seeing the value of the ITGA network and sharing leading practices to enhance and success our campus community makes my job very rewarding.
Excellent. All right, Emily, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, and Beth and Dilna. This is exciting to be here. So Emily Allen, I work for the city of Fort Collins, and I serve as the senior city planner for neighborhoods, but I'm going to backtrack for a second. So I worked for Colorado State University in Fort Collins, Colorado for 13 years. And more recently as the community liaison, where I actually spent half my time at the university and half my time with the city of Fort Collins. And so that's where I dived into town and gown relationships. The path was a pretty natural one. I'm someone who likes to engage with my community. I grew up in a family that was really out in the community and making it the best place to live. And so my love for higher education and working with students, it seemed like a great fit of being out in the community and helping students really engage in the community. I think that a student's college career, their experience can be so different if they actually are out within the community in which they're going into school in. They become better neighbors, they become better citizens, they're more engaged, not only in their time at the college itself, but when they go on to engage, in other communities they live in. So now that I work for the city of Fort Collins full-time, I like to consider myself actually the community liaison for the entire city. So I went to working with just the students to working directly with 167,000 people and helping them be more engaged citizens, connecting with the city, connecting with other resources, working with a lot of different partners. And thanks again for having me.
Sure. All right, Dilna?
Yes, well, thank you as well for the invitation. I appreciate it. My name is Dilnavaz Cama, and I am part of student life at The Ohio State University. I'm fortunate enough to be able to manage our off-campus and commuter student services organization at Ohio State. So our department is comprised of 4.5 professional staff members, the half being our graduate administrative associate. And then the remaining 20 to 30 individuals are all student leaders. So we're very much a student-run, student-led organization. We really take the input of our student leaders to ensure that we are impacting students, today's student, in the right way. In terms of my interest in this profession, honestly, I actually worked in student life as a student during my undergraduate career. So I was unsure what I was going to do. I was fortunate they created a position for me when I graduated, and over the years I've learned my true passion is really development with young adults. And working with town gown work, I've really grown to be fond of that. We get to work with so many different populations, so many stakeholders in a variety of ways. Students, they keep us on our toes, but also our many stakeholders in the community do so as well. And so I've really enjoyed the fact that I get to learn on a daily basis previously, and I'm still learning every day. And so it's just very enjoyable and fruitful for me.
Excellent. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Certainly an emerging area that universities and cities are focusing on. Can you talk a little bit, Beth, about the history and mission of ITGA?
Yes, and it definitely is an emerging field, Tony. So before the International Town and Gown Association was formally organized in 2008, many campus community stakeholders were working in isolation while they were solving very complex, or what I like to refer to as wicked problems in their communities. And there was a recognition that communities face similar problems, and town gown issues were not just in their community. So I think many times our members feel siloed, and then when they have an issue and they realize that there's actually a formal international association that deals with this, then they come to us and begin to talk to us about what's going on in their communities. So the formation took place through a series of meetings and events in which municipal and academic leaders recognized the need for unification. There were originally 8 founding members that joined forces to help construct this organization. And we were established formally in 2008 as a nonprofit through the vision of Mayor Larry Abernathy, the Joint City University Advisory Board, which we refer to as the JCUAB, and the City of Clemson and Clemson University. And our mission is that ITGA strengthens campus community partnerships by providing a network of professionals and resources, leading our emerging practices and professional development opportunities for municipalities and their hosts and their universities or institutions of higher education. Many times we are contacted when campus communities are in crisis. And this allows them the opportunity to network with professionals who have found solutions to challenges that are common to institutions of higher education in their host communities.
Fantastic. So I want to get to the why. So Dilna, can you talk about some of the benefits and opportunities of developing these kind of relationships?
Sure, absolutely. When I think of town gown work, those relationships, I consider it very similar to any industry and the partnerships that you develop in those industries and the benefits that come along with that. So really, when you're talking about town gown work, it's about realizing that our missions in our communities are common. There's common underlying themes that go along with that. And it's important that we all align our work together to enhance our impact. I think we can all be successful and do a great job individually, but as in any area, working together, just a lot more impact that you can have both in our community and with our citizens. So I would say that's incredibly important. And I wanted to give maybe just a couple examples of that. I mean, I think the three of us could probably go on and on all day about it, but I'll try to stick with just a few examples. So for us at Ohio State University, working with our landlords and our businesses in the community has been very fruitful. It's been a very mutually beneficial relationship. For the university, we want to make sure that our students are educated, being educated, essentially going on and being successful. Our landlords want the same thing, perhaps for a different reason. Their bottom line might look different, but they want students to also be successful, because an educated, successful student is also probably a more responsible student and tenant off campus. And so working with landlords and really allowing them to be the arm to help us in that education is key. I also think about funding, and people will probably be sick of hearing me say this, but I really truly believe that you figure out what the most important pieces are, what we need to do for our community, what's going to make the biggest impact, and making sure we don't allow the limitations of funding to impede us on moving forward. So the reason I bring that up is our landlords have been critical in that for us. We certainly have a limited budget, as many organizations do, and our landlords, making sure that they're aligning their priorities with ours, have been very supportive financially, as an example, with many of our initiatives. So having that mutually beneficial relationship has been great. I think another example is retention, right? So at all institutions, retention is incredibly important. We want, again, our students to be successful. But it's not just about retaining students in your institutions, it's also about retaining talent in your communities post-graduation. So how are the institutions in their communities working together? How is our College of Public Policy and our mayor's office working together, creating internship opportunities for students outside the classroom? So I mean, there's so endless examples, but those are just, it's key for that town and gown, for those partnerships to work together as stakeholders to really have the best impact on our communities.
Dilna, Beth talked about this in regards to Clemson, that often folks come to look for help after or during a crisis situation. Was there a particular impetus for creating the Department of Ohio State?
Sure. Again, we were fortunate. There was a version of our department that existed even in the 1970s. To be honest, that was more, from my understanding, more commuter focused. And then it kind of reappeared in the 90s, more so a focus on off-campus. Primarily, though, it was a very basic office. It was providing information on available properties to rent off campus, because obviously we can't house everyone in the residence halls. And then it focused on finding roommates. But what I will say is the evolution of our department definitely was reactive to the climate and to our students at the time. So what we learned quickly, I would say, starting in the mid-1990s was we're getting a lot of inquiries and questions and concerns about issues that students are having, and even getting frustrations and inquiries from landlords about their tenants. And so what we learned is, we have to do a lot more education. It's not just about finding the housing and finding the roommates, but it's really about making sure that our community, as well as our students, have a positive experience. What I will say is, towards the end of the 90s, early 2000s, probably not just unique to Ohio State, which I know, student behavior, there was the rise in riots. So that definitely informed a lot of the work that we do. So we really needed to get a handle on this. It was not good for our institution, for our city, for our community at all. And so we all came together, landlords, the university, permanent residents, lots of different people came together and said, okay, how do we make this culture change? Our students are not respecting the neighborhoods or valuing the neighborhoods that they're living in. And so coming together, we decided, as an example, a community ambassador program is what we wanted to do. We wanted to pilot a program that was student-led, that encouraged students to really take ownership and pride in the area that they worked in. And so we piloted this community ambassador program. In the first couple years, it was 100% funded by our local area landlords. After that, once it became an established program, the university came in, financially supported it. But to this day, it's a combination of university funds, generous landlord donations, and then also, obviously, we have to do our due diligence and grants that we've received over the years as well.
Fantastic. I wouldn't have thought that landlords would be part of that equation, so that's an interesting framework. So Emily, you've talked about, you have worked on both sides of of this situation, both on the college side and the city side. So I'm interested to hear what might be some of the differences you have in perspective, or some of the challenges that you face from either side of that situation.
Yeah, sure. So at the city of Fort Collins, so I worked in neighborhood services, and that's where my current position is as well. And then for off-campus life, so similar to the department that Dilna was just talking about at Colorado State University, there's so many things that I want to share during this time, because there's power in the partnerships, right? So the city of Fort Collins and CSU, they knew that it was key to work together. So similar to what Dilna shared in the late 90s. So I guess rioting was a trend in the 90s. I was in college in the 90s and I don't remember this, but apparently we were good at the institution I was from. So just a lot was happening, right? And so power in the partnerships, why aren't those two large entities working together to make things better for all of the community members, students and non-students alike? But I want to point that out, because for all of you listening today, the city of Fort Collins and Colorado State University didn't start where we are at now. So our partnership is amazing, and we have so many programs that we can talk about and so many committees and people working together, but we started somewhere, right? So back in the late 90s, there wasn't a shared position. There wasn't someone who worked for both institutions. So, there was a study done and a pilot done within a specific student-focused neighborhood, and neighbors were brought to the table, and small little programs were developed over time. And that's where the partnership started. We started somewhere. Now, today, we've seen an evolution, right? So we have this great joint position. So again, fully funded by both Colorado State University and the city of Fort Collins, working for off-campus life, neighborhood services. So again, power in the partnership. They came together to say, we take this so seriously, we want to put money behind it, and we want one person to be focusing on this and creating programs for it. But that doesn't mean that the visions and the missions always align, right? So both the institution and the city obviously want what's best for the community, but the city of Fort Collins has a larger entity to think of. They need to take into consideration housing value and what's happening out in the neighborhoods and what pressures city council is facing. So city council back in the 90s, noise was the number one concern. And I'm from New York originally, and I always joke with the students at CSU that if noise is a top complaint, you've got to be living in a pretty awesome community. So, and then for CSU, CSU finally said, all right, so we're going to put our money where our mouth is, and we're going to hold students responsible for their behavior off campus. So there were policy changes. So the university came to the table and said, okay, our code of conduct now applies off campus. So if a student gets in trouble off campus, then they're going to be held responsible and come through the conduct system. And I know so many institutions, they still don't have that policy today. So that's definitely something to look into. So yes, while values and missions are different, ultimately, there are a group of people at both sides that, again, want what's best for the community. So starting somewhere, you do not need to have one person shared between both. We were talking in preparation for this, and we want to share that this town-gown relationship is happening in your communities. It's just a matter of how it's happening and who it's happening with. So maybe you have an off-campus life office and a neighborhood services office. Maybe you have a community relations office. There's someone out there in your communities who's trying to do this work. And it's about finding out who those people are and coming to the table and saying, how can I help? Or figuring out who your advocates and your partners are and saying, let's create a coalition, a group of people who want to figure out how to make this community the best community possible. So this work starts somewhere. And I know all communities, have people working on this stuff.
Fantastic. So part of the title here is trends, benefits, and challenges. So I want to focus for a few minutes on the trends piece of this and ask you to each share one trend that you're paying close attention to this year. And I recognize that what might be a trend or innovation for one community may not be for another. So Emily, you want to start us off?
Sure. So currently, again, I'm from Fort Collins, but I'm in the city of Flagstaff right now in Arizona. And I can't help but smile as I drive around this community and look at the student housing that is going up. So the trends that we're definitely paying a close attention to in the city of Fort Collins is housing in general. The costs only continue to rise within the city. Again, we're a city of about 167,000, and about 28,000 of the students are living off campus. And students are struggling to pay rent, and our community is struggling to pay rent. And as we go out there and more people to move to our city because they want to live in this amazing community, the cost of housing is only driven up. So with the cost of housing also comes an issue of what's available. So our vacancy rate, a healthy vacancy rate within any community is roughly 5%. And the city of Fort Collins has been well below 5% for many, many years. And so student-focused housing on a national level has come to be a bigger issue. Back, 10, 20 years ago, it was local builders that would build the housing for the community. And within the past 6 to 7 years, it's been national companies coming in. So these national companies are saying, ooh, low vacancy rate, you need housing for your students. Here we are. So I'm driving around Flagstaff and I'm seeing the exact same developments that I see within the city of Fort Collins, the same national companies. And I've always shared that this isn't good or bad, it's just different. And so you need to reach out to these corporations and say, how can we partner? Let me tell you a little bit about the city of Fort Collins. Here's the rules and regulations that apply. Here's how we educate our students. Can we partner? Can you require move-in orientations where we're present and we can help give presentations on being a good neighbor and living in this facility and paying your rent on time? And so while it can be scary for a lot of places to have these national companies, I have found that they're really willing to partner with the city and the university. So, and I think student housing across the nation, town gown partnerships, people are attracted to areas where there are colleges and universities. So I think that this will always be kind of a hot topic for a while.
So before I move on to the next person, who would generally reach out to these national companies? Is it the city or is it the institution?
That's a great question. So I think that it depends on who the office is. So for instance, again, we have a joint position, right? So as the community liaison, I was able to do research, reach out to them, and then we wound up having meetings before they even moved in. And so someone from neighborhood services, police, and then off-campus life at the university would go out and meet with these individuals while they were building their facility. We've actually also moved to what we call the student-focused housing session, where we invite all of those communities, so the property management companies, the builders, to come to a session in the summertime where we talk to them as a group and we talk about best practices. A great example, 10 years ago, one of the apartment complexes always threw a welcome back to school party. And the party grew so out of control. We're talking about thousands of people that police came, ambulance came, and they wound up getting a $15,000 nuisance gathering fine. So this company comes to the student-focused housing session, and a best practice they share is that they do pool maintenance the first week of school. And the pool isn't open the first week of school, giving people a little bit of time to settle down. But how great to share that with other places. And so many other companies are like, oh, yeah, maybe we shouldn't host a welcome back to school pool party. So it gives them a chance to talk about best practices, even within their own industry.
Love it. All right, Beth, you're up next. What trend do you want to talk about?
Well, first of all, Emily, thank you for bringing that up. I know that a lot of our listeners can relate to that. Keep in mind that our work is cyclical. And one current challenge that we continue to focus on is how alcohol impacts our campus communities. Our work affects change based on today's students. This includes student populations and off-campus housing, also house parties that are unsupervised, sororities, and fraternities. So the culture of alcohol is a big ritual on college campuses. But we also see that solutions are rooted in environmental and cultural change. You cannot solely arrest your way out of the problem or solely educate your way out of the problem. It takes a comprehensive sustained effort. And those, I have to give credit where credit's due, that Steve Smith with the National Alcohol Beverage Control Association. But we have a survey that we did for a couple of years that we're starting back up again next year. But when asked about the most common issues facing their communities, I'm sure this is not going to surprise you all, the most frequently reported were house parties, late night noise, and underage drinking. And you don't have to look far in the news to see some of the current events that we're seeing around the country that's related to alcohol.
Great. All right, Dilna, you're up.
Sure. So safety is what I think I would like to talk a little bit more about. Safety is always at the forefront of efforts, whether it's a dedicated office like ours, or it's our cities, or it's our colleges as a whole. But how we approach safety, how we educate our students, how we engage our community, those are the things that has to accommodate today's student as well as within today's climate. And so one of the things that we've done at Ohio State University to think both strategically but innovatively in terms of safety is a program and a partnership with our Columbus Division of Fire. And so our program, it's called the Off-Campus Housing Excellence Program. And what it allows us to do is, if invited, go to properties off campus in the university district area, so that area walking distance to campus, go and assess the safety, security, and sustainability of those properties. And so this really gives us a very pointed opportunity to not only educate students and help them in terms of giving them ways in which they can enhance their safety, security, and sustainability, but also talking with landlords. We've seen a lot of things change as we've done these home walkthroughs, as we call it, when we're doing these assessments, and ways that landlords have changed their business practices based off of the feedback we've provided to them. And so our goal long-term with this program is to really enhance the off-campus living experience, enhance the quality of life for our students as well as the community. And I think, you know, again, you look back at what we were doing and what other institutions were doing 5-10 years ago, safety was still at the forefront of the work that was being done, but it was being done in a different way. And so I think it's really key that we're always evolving and adjusting to make sure that we are having the greatest impact possible.
So is there this interaction between campus public safety and the local community safety? Do they actually connect in most cases?
They do. I can speak on Ohio State's behalf. We do have a formal joint patrol. So that's a member of our Columbus Police Division and also a member of our Ohio State Police Department. And so there are two individuals that go as a team off campus, getting to know students, building that rapport so that if there were a high alert situation, the students are not standoffish and have built a relationship with those officers. So very key.
Great. Now, Beth, you touched on this earlier, and I want to get a few strategies or concrete examples. If a school doesn't have the resources to commit to creating this dedicated department around town-gown relations, how might folks begin to address these issues, and what department might take the lead?
Well, you know, there are, I'm sure a lot of your listeners, some of you are from big universities and campuses, some of you from smaller university, and your resources will not allow you right now to start off with a robust off-campus housing, or what Dilna and Emily are both talking about, program. But we did a survey, and over 50% of the respondents said that they had some sort of a formal organization, such as a joint city-university advisory board or a town-gown committee. And 42% of those had a student representative as a member. So I pulled up an example of what one might look like. I didn't share this with you, but if there's anybody online that would like to see this, this is an MOU by the City of Clemson and Clemson University. And this is a very, very antiquated, it's very old, but they still meet. And this was formed back in 1990. And they formed a I referred to it a while ago as the JCUAB, the Joint City University Advisory Board. They meet monthly. Whoever, and ITGA uses this for our leadership too, whoever is leading that initiative that year, the president or of the organization, they do 1 year there's a representative from the university, and the next year there's a representative from the city or the community. So it truly is a balanced town-gown effort. And the areas of mutual concern that this was built upon back in the 1990s was planning and land use, student housing, transportation and parking, security and public safety, public works and utilities, and physical responsibility and impact. Now, of course, this varies based on the needs of your community. But I think if you determine who your stakeholders are, who you'd really like to be a part of this committee. I know sometimes I talked to someone recently who had a committee of 30 people.
Wow.
And that was really ambitious. I think it was actually 36, very ambitious. But, and then I know some that actually, I think Clemson has 9 representatives from the university and 9 representatives from the city. And these are positions that are actually represented in this MOU. So those positions are always going to be at the table, the way that it was designed. So anybody can do this and actually start by looking at what does your community look like and what are your concerns. And I'm sure a lot of these concerns that you're going to have is what we're talking about today. It's either going to be alcohol, it could be binge drinking, it could be off-campus housing, it could be retention, it could be a lot of these different things. Or you've got some great you're growing and you've got some great economic development opportunities that you have in your community, and you want to take a comprehensive approach to how should we deal with this, how do we involve, or you're doing a master plan for your campus and you want to involve the community and get their input as to how they would like to see the growth organized in their community. So we also know that communication is key. Communication is key here. I've even talked to someone that said once they formed their advisory committee, that if before they went to the press on an issue, they would talk to the advisory board first, so that it was a coordinated effort. And this is a way also to be proactive and not reactive. You do not want to wait till there's a crisis in your community before you have some sort of a town-gown advisory committee. And survey respondents, again, I keep referring to some data, but I think people like the data. Survey respondents, they cited disagreements on important issues such as student housing, financial support for city services, and off-campus student conduct as barriers to a strong working relationship. So if we know empirically that those are going to be some of the barriers, then you might want to start developing your town-gown advisory board around some of those common concerns. This is not just one city. This is pretty universal. We've been to Canada, we've been to the UK, and Dilna and I will be going to Africa, and we still hear a lot of the same comments.
If I could add something.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dilna.
No, go for it, Emily.
I'm going to sound like an ad for a second because Beth won't do it herself, but a really great place to start is the International Town and Gown Association, the website. Come to the conference if you can budget that in. I can't tell you enough how much camaraderie there is. I laugh whenever I go to those conferences because it's almost like you can see the stress come off people's shoulders when they look at each other and they're like, I'm not alone. And I've met so many people who it's just one person who will come and say, help me. Okay, give me everything. Where do I start? Who would be on this committee? What small program can I start on my own? What does the budget look like? The people who are doing this work are so open. Again, that's why I'm in the city of Flagstaff. I'm here to help them with a couple of things. So people are so on board for partnering, not having people reinvent the wheel. So check out the ITGA website, come to the conference. You will literally be handed stuff. We stole their playing cards several years ago, and we have our playing cards where we put all of our city codes and ordinances and all this stuff, and we hand them out to all of the students. I can only imagine what drinking games are created, but that's not the point. The point is really good educational information is getting out there in a fun way. So there are people to hold your hand. So you are not in this stuff alone.
Yes,
I'm
and
sorry. I missed. Who'd you steal the playing card idea from?
The Ohio State University.
Oh, of course. Of course.
Thank you.
And if I could say too, I wholeheartedly agree with everything they've both said. And with the annual City and University Relations Conference that Beth's organization puts on, the learning that goes along with that, it's not just the one person that's coming from Greek affairs that doesn't even have an organization like an off-campus or neighborhood organization. I'm learning from that one person, just as that person gets to learn from many of us who have established programs. Yeah. I want to kind of echo what Emily had said before. We all have to start somewhere, and we all understand that we've all started in that place. And so there's just so much learning that goes on at that conference. We've really created, Beth's done a phenomenal job creating this network of support for each other. And so we're always calling each other, emailing, getting information, resources from the ITGA website that just continues to enhance the work that we're doing. It just allows for us to learn every day still.
And I think, Tony, one of the things that I want to, since we're talking about the conference, one of the membership opportunities that we have is a joint city university membership. So it allows somebody from the city and somebody from the university. In fact, Emily and Dilna both are part of this joint city university membership. And so it allows 4 people from the city and 4 people from the university to come to get the discounted rates to come to the conference and to also have access to our resources on the website. Because you may want to come search this. You may feel like you're siloed in your community, and it's like, okay, I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity, and I want somebody to come with me, but our budget's small. But you do need to start somewhere, and it's amazing what you can do if you come to the conference and you get networked, but also if you bring somebody with you. If it's you from the university, bring somebody from the city, and you can meet with a lot of people at the conference who will give you strategies, and they're all anxious to learn. We have a network of researchers, but we have also people who are boots on the ground who are doing this work. And it's not just people from the university, it's people from the city. That's what makes this organization very different, and that we have a police, we have mayors, we have people from city council, we have corporations who are there, and then we also have student affairs, and we have people from the university who are doing this work. Plus we have mayors, and we have presidents, and we have deans. We have all different people who come, and these people would not typically be in one room together, but they are at the conference. And so they're sitting together at the table, and they're sharing strategies that work in their communities.
I really love that model. It makes me think that perhaps some of the student affairs other student affairs organizations could take a similar tact and invite, or as part of membership, include faculty members that aren't necessarily student affairs faculty members. So really intrigued by the idea. So you have all shared a few great ideas along our journey here today. I'm wondering if you could share some other examples of successful programmatic initiatives that you've come across.
Okay.
Beth?
Sure. I know that Emily a while ago mentioned something about noise abatement. And so ACT San Marcos, ACT stands for Achieving Community Together. And what I gave Tony to share with you all after this presentation was over was actually submitted for the Larry Abernathy Award. So it's written in a way that it's a good summary of the program. And so I decided that was an appropriate piece to share with you. But basically, it's a noise abatement program. The city and Texas State collaborated. And in 2007, the police handled 2,833 noise complaints. The most frequent 911 calls were for service at the San Marcos Police Department around noise. And large parties were a huge drain on the resources. So the committee developed a comprehensive noise response plan with emphasis on education and community influence, not enforcement. And they also incorporated what they call ACT Ally. And I think it's ACT Ally, I'm sorry. And it's an education program to help students successfully transition off campus, which is what we've been talking about today, and to get along with neighbors and fulfill the responsibilities of living in a community. As a result of these two initiatives, noise decreased by 47%, and the time saved in patrol labor of handling noise calls translated to 2,315 hours that were saved as a result of those man hours that were saved as a result of this work that they did. And so that is one document that I'm sharing with you. And the other is the Miami-Oxford Town Gown Initiative team. In 2015, they sent a representative from the city and the university to the ITGA conference, which is kind of what we were talking about a while ago. And in July of 2000, while they were there at that conference, there was a big circle of people from Ohio that got together, because I got in the middle of it because I always want to see where the action is. And it was like, okay, so what are you guys talking about? Well, they were talking about what's going on in the state of Ohio. What can we learn from each other? We know what's going on internationally, but how does Ohio look as a comparison, and what can we learn about our community? So they decided to host a Ohio Town Gown Summit, and they started, their first one was in 2016, and then in 2017, Miami and Oxford hosted the second Ohio Town Gown Summit. And the group that they created that came out of this is called the Town Gown Initiative Team. And this is sort of what we've been talking about. You don't have the resources to have a whole department that's dedicated to this, but you can start some sort of an advisory committee. So, and they created what they call guiding concepts for the team. And the key is bringing the right stakeholders to the table and having a forum for communication, so that when conflicts arise, you are not reacting to the crisis, but being proactive. So this is, these are two programs that I really wanted to share. These are just an example of the resources that we have on our website, but this we're giving away for free today.
Fantastic. All right, Emily, you're up.
Okay, it's going to be speed dating. I'm going to talk about this real fast. I want
great.
to cover a couple of different programs from passive to active. So we have a microfiber, which I would say is to clean my glasses for students. It's to clean their tablets and iPhones. But that's a passive way, over 7,000 of them handed out in the residence halls that get out to the community, the on-campus community, to say that their actions have impact and to represent RAMS proudly. This lets the students know that there's a code of conduct both on and off campus. So when they're new to the university and living on campus and they walk across the major street and they think that they can drink and they get a minor in possession ticket, and then they get a letter in the mail from the university saying, hey, we know what you were up to. The conduct office used to say that students would say, I didn't even know the code of conduct applied off campus. So when we handed out these microfibers, they've not heard that anymore. The students know, right? So here's this passive way to educate students on that. Some more active programs in the beginning of the rental season. So we know our leases start around August 1st. We actually partner with a local ice cream truck company, and we get out in the ice cream truck and go deliver free ice cream and good neighboring tips. So, hey, welcome. It looks like you're moving in. Do you know your neighbors? Have you met them? We've had people meet at the ice cream truck and say, oh, you all just moved in, you know, and here are the little 2 or 3-year-old kids getting their free ice cream. And the parents are like, can we have your contact information? Wow. So, you know, inexpensive. I think it's a couple $100. The ice cream truck comes for free. We buy the ice cream. We hand out brochures. Super easy program. Community welcome. We do the first Wednesday of classes where we partner with both Fort Collins Police Services as well as CSU police officers, staff from both organizations, and student volunteers to go out into groups. So they're teamed up in groups and they go around all around campus and hand out over 2,000 brochures to the students and non-student residents living around campus. So great way to get police out there in a proactive way at the start of school, students to see, you know, city staff, university staff, police, the volunteers have a great time working together. We also have party registration, which is a year-long program that allows any resident living within the city limits of Fort Collins to register their gathering and receive a 20-minute warning before police are sent. So if a noise complaint comes in to dispatch, dispatch will actually call the numbers and give them a 20-minute warning. And as long as they take care of the party and shut it down, police aren't even sent. So it saves police time, it saves staff time. A party call is a low priority call, so that could build and the party can go on for 2 hours before officers are sent. So the community gets a faster response and the party hosts don't wind up with a very costly ticket.
Wow,
Then
I love that idea. I'm like, why would
Yeah.
anyone, what would be the incentive for me to register my party? But 20-minute warning, that's great. All right,
Yeah,
sorry, I
yeah.
interrupted you.
No, you're good. We also have our class. It's called Rams Around the Fort. So ram is our mascot. So Rams Around the Fort, Fort Collins, where we go into first year seminars and spend an hour in the fall semester and spring semester and educate students. We partner with police, so they come in proactively and co-teach the class. And we talk everything from good neighboring and the importance of getting to know your neighbor all the way to the nitty-gritty of the codes and ordinances. And then a really in-depth program is our CityWorks EDU class. And that is a 3-credit class that I teach in the fall and then a 1-credit class in the spring semester. And there's a cohort of students that go out and learn all about the city. So we ride the bus. We teach them how to ride the bus. We go visit with police. We go visit with utilities. We go visit with the gardens on Spring Creek. We visited parks planning to learn how parks are created. So the students really get an in-depth opportunity to learn about the city that they're going to be living in for the next 4 to 6 years.
Dude, we're not kidding. That was like a speed dating listing. I'm curious. So what the CityWorks class, what academic discipline does that fall under?
Yeah, so it's a partnership with our Student Achievement Office. And so it's actually geared towards students that come through our KEY program. So students are targeted ahead of time, outreach is done and recruited for these students to come into this program, predominantly underrepresented students. So students from first gen, low income, minority populations. It's a class designed to kind of strengthen their support system. So they all take it in a cohort together. The cool part is that our new Strayer Center, which is a public involvement office that's getting created on campus, picked up on the class, and now they want to offer that in an upper level class. So that would be open to the general population. So there's actually this little class has grown into this opportunity for all students to probably get a chance to take in their time at CSU.
Fantastic. All right, Dilna, do you have a speed list for us too?
So I'll give an example of that's going to focus more on the beautification or the environment off campus. So during, and I'm sure this is very similar at many locations across the U.S., there's a peak time for move in and move out off campus. And so what you will see is a lot more garbage, a lot more furniture sitting outside of dumpsters, a lot more issues that end up going on. And with that, a lot more fire hazards off campus. And so we were seeing this year after year, and we would try to do education. We would try to have, and we still do have, drop-off locations if you're going to be moving and you don't need to take your mattress or your couch or whatever those items might look like. But still a need for more to happen. And so this is an example of how our community came together to try and alleviate some of those issues. And so we have a UDO, which is our University District Organization, which really works to liaison between so many of our stakeholders in our community. Our city, specifically our refuse collection, our local area landlords, to be able to talk about their lease terms when they anticipate those to be, and then the university coming together each year talking about strategy and how we're going to ensure that the area stays clean and stays safe. And so what we do as a group is come up with dates when we might adjust when pickup will be for recycling and garbage and furniture, in addition to those other efforts that we have. And we've seen an increase we've seen an improvement in the off-campus area since we have been doing that. And that really was spearheaded from our University District Organization, which is a phenomenal organization that does a lot of great things within our community arts districts. They now have staff that work in the community as well. There's a lot of things that they do, but I think that was just one sort of informal initiative that we have that has made a pretty large impact on the community during those high move in, move out, the height of those times.
Great. So I'm going to jump around here. That last 10 minutes alone was worth the free cost of this webinar, for sure. So I want to take a moment and talk about political considerations. And as college students inhabit a town, of course, they have potential large numbers that could skew local elections if they choose to register and vote locally. So what's the university's obligation to connect students to these local issues? And have any of you seen any best practices or good practices in this area?
So I can start and talk a little bit about this. Again, I will say this a lot. Student leaders are the key to making these types of efforts successful, or as successful as they can be. So at Ohio State, we have an OSU Votes organization. So students really working with their peers to make students aware. They've actually won an award. I believe it was last year. They had a 50 to 59% voter rate out of Ohio State University. So pretty impressive. And I can speak for our organization. We make sure to collaborate with them in many of our initiatives. So through our community ambassadors, so those students working in the off-campus neighborhoods, and our commuter liaisons, so those students that really work to keep our commuters engaged with the university and the city. They work with OSU Votes and incorporate that education, that information, those resources into the many initiatives that we already have going on. The other piece that I would say you're seeing a lot of is obviously inside the classroom. Right now I talked about kind of the outside the classroom experience, but you know, as institutions look at their general education requirements, because obviously those have to be revamped on a somewhat regular basis, you're seeing more and more of updates and a focal area specifically on citizenship. So that could include local, state, national, whatever that might look like. So I really think it's not just the responsibility of the academic areas, but also the out of the classroom experiences. And then students themselves, those student leaders, and that peer-to-peer interaction and education. I think that combined effort is what really makes it so we are impactful in that area. Great.
So how do we measure success in this area? How do we evaluate potentially an investment and a return on investment? Anyone can jump in.
So I can start again if you would like. I am a true believer that collecting and analyzing data is key to any of our successes. You want continuous improvement. You want to truly make sure that you're making an impact on the community. And so data is often used, like I've talked about before, to inform the work that we're doing. So we collect data and assessment from many stakeholders, not just our students that we're reaching out to, but also our stakeholders, our landlords, our community members, etc. We're also utilizing our student leaders. What is their impact? What is their input on the things that we are doing? We integrate our KPIs, our key performance indicators, and incorporate that into the balanced scorecard mechanism we utilize to track, strategize, ensure leadership and the community know exactly what we're doing and what's going on. And I think, you know, it's important to always take it to the next level. So we're not just measuring satisfaction or level of knowledge, which I'm not saying isn't important, but we're taking it to another level. So how is that knowledge being utilized? So I talked earlier about that off-campus housing excellence program, right? And we're going in and providing in-home education to students. Well, we have an assessment piece that 2 to 4 weeks afterwards, we go back to them, we say, hey, we provided these recommendations. We already know you have the knowledge now. How are you using it? Has it truly empowered them to have conversations with their landlords? Has it allowed them to also improve the quality of their life off campus? And so I think really thinking about assessment and data in many different ways, and always making sure we're collecting data, it's not simply to do it, but to allow it to lead us and inform the work that we're doing.
Real quick, just a couple of easy things to do. One is collect data in the moment. So for every single program we do, we collect data on it. So those programs that I talked to you about, riding around in the ice cream truck to community welcome, we just create a simple postcard survey that's distributed right there. And we either collect it right there or it's pre-stamped. Hey, fill it out, put it in your mailbox. And we get such a great response rate. Another one that has been vital to our community, and this is to the city of Fort Collins as well, is text message surveys. So once you ask them a question, you could put the question up on a bus and say, text your answer to, and then it generates like a couple of other questions. So, and then you can hit them up at different points in time. Like what Dilna was saying, you can check in 2 weeks from then and ask them, generate the next level of questions to their phone. But we find people really enjoy just kind of taking the survey with them and being able to answer it as they go on their phone.
So Emily, you said pre-stamp. Do our students actually know what a stamp is?
We take 10 minutes to educate them on the U.S. Postal Service.
That's fantastic. All right, so Beth, you started off by sharing the history and mission for ITGA. Could you take a few minutes and talk about some short-term, long-term goals?
Sure. Well, when we first started this episode, you mentioned something about town and gown as an emerging field, and it still is. And the ITGA is still young. We were formalized in 2008, so we are growing. We've experienced a lot of growth since 2013. We've grown almost 100% in our membership. And so we're making a lot of leaps and bounds, but we see this as an organization that has so much potential. So, and currently we are the world's largest network of campus and community professionals. So I think one of the things that we want to do is to be at the table around national conversations that impact our communities and that impact our members. I mentioned that one of the things that we want to do is to connect to build strategic partnerships and sponsors. I was remiss in mentioning that Dilna and, well, OSU, Ohio State University, and the City of Columbus is our host for next year's conference, the ITGA City and University Relations Conference. So the more members we have, the more conference attendees we have, the more impact we have, and the more research and networking we have. I always say that we're only as good as our members. So as we increase our membership and our network, then we begin to have more impact. And then also increasing our joint city university membership is one thing, because we bring the town and the gown together, and we want to have a balance there, and that's really important. So the more town and gown members we have, then we have that representative. And then we're also working to increase the I in ITGA. And so through Dilna's efforts and working with some of her colleagues in Africa, we actually have an opportunity to go there and hope that they will be at our conference. We learned that as we have these conversations around the world, all of our issues are common. And so the more work that we can do to get research, the more impact we have in our communities. And so that's something that we really want to do. I will have to tell you that I work with an incredible team in our e-board. Emily is one of our e-board members. You can tell the synergy that she has. She has a lot of energy. Dilna does too. It's people like this that are impacting the world. And so one community at a time. So we're looking for expansion and hoping that people who are listening today who are not members would go to our website and feel free to contact any three of us and have a conversation.
Excellent. I can tell, Dilna, how proud you are of the work that you've done at Ohio State, and Columbus is a fabulous conference town, so that should prove to be a great convention.
We're very excited.
I can tell you were smiling the whole time. So in the last 2 minutes or so, you shared some resources already, but would you all take a moment and share a few websites, books? You know, you mentioned the conference, newsletters that the audience might be able to go investigate and to learn a little bit more about what we covered here today.
I want to put a plug in for Michael Fox. He is one of our board members who does a lot of research, and he wrote a book that's called Town and Gown Relationships from Conflict to Cooperation. And it is one of the most user-friendly books I have read. We also have some other research that we're doing that we haven't announced yet, so I'm not at liberty to be able to release that information. But Michael Fox's book, From Conflict to Cooperation, is something that anybody can get. It's an easy read, and there's a lot of good information. I use it as kind of my town gown Bible outside of the resources on our website. If somebody asks me a particular question, I will go to that book and really delve into that, because it's very helpful. So that and our website, and I think 2 other things quickly. We have pre-conference opportunities at the, pre-conference professional development opportunities, and their certificate in town gown relations level 1 and level 2. This is very helpful. If you go to our website, you can see this. We have Peter Block is actually going to be instructing certificate level 2. You do have to take certificate 1 first, but if you don't know who Peter Block is, then please go to our website and you can read about his work. I know a lot of you do. So those are some things that we offer, but in particular, Michael Fox's book, I really want to push out there.
Nice. Real quick, for off-campus life at Colorado State University, if you just go to ocl.colostate.edu, again, off-campus life at Colorado State University, all of the programs that I talked about are all featured there. So you can see that microfiber all the way up to the brochures we hand out. And then for my class, the CityWorks EDU, we require them to read Peter Kakiyama's book, For the Love of Cities. And I would recommend that for you all, just in how you love your own city. It's very telling in how we all show up in our own communities.
Great. Dilma?
I'll say just generally, I also encourage people to look for local opportunities in terms of conferences. So as Beth mentioned, we have our regional conference, for instance, at Ohio, but also looking at conferences that aren't necessarily titled Town Gown, but the content is going to be as consistent. So earlier you asked us about metrics and data. So really understanding those basics and knowing how to collect and utilize data is important. So for us, we're fortunate. Ohio State has a Student Affairs Research and Assessment Conference every year. I find those kinds of opportunities also very beneficial for our own professional development, but certainly to help us in the work that we're doing. So looking for those opportunities may not stand out immediately as you're thinking about town gown work, but I would encourage people to look at some of those local opportunities as well.
Wow.
And our website address is www.itga.org.
All right, and as I said, I will take everything that you've shared today, and we've been tweeting out many of them over the last hour, but I will take all these resources and put them on the archive site, which is the same link that most people are viewing this right now, so people can share it. Hopefully that'll be a resource that everyone can take advantage of. I really thank you to all of you for taking the time to prepare and really coordinate today. Lots of great knowledge. I'm excited to go buy a few books and continue to learn and explore on this topic. Perhaps I'll make it out to the conference.
Good.
I will be back in January with the Executive Director of NERSA, Pam Watts, to discuss how to best integrate wellness into campus life. And Keith Edwards will be back to discuss the topic of living learning communities. That's in January. You can receive reminders about this and other great shows by subscribing to the Higher Ed Live newsletter. You can also browse the archives at higheredlive.com or subscribe to our iTunes podcast. I'm Tony Doody. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you make it a great week, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.